and welcome to Adventure Habits with me, David Overton, and Nick Taliadoros, a man from behind the scenes, an essential part of the production team here at Splash Maps' Adventure Habits. And good morning to you, Nick.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really well, and I'm really looking forward to actually, going back. This is like an end point. This is the 30th of our Adventure Habits pods. It's been great working with you so far, and I'm just blown away by what season we've had. Just that the people we've been able to attract in.
Yeah, it's been incredible, and I think for the team, it's been fantastic to go and edit through a lot of the content and see so many people's different stories from what they've done. And I think with 29 different episodes, there's a great eclectic range of different stories of different people from different age ranges for different things they've done. So
Yeah.
there's always an episode for somebody.
Yeah, I mean, no kidding. We've had from people, we've had the retirement rebel, right down to Tamara Amara Automotive and her car thing, her bicycle car thing that she's going around the world on. So from entrepreneurs to mountain leaders and record breakers, and I just find it astounding that these people will spare the time for us. So yeah, what a great season! What a great season! 30. Wow, wow.
It is lucky that we've managed to get so many people who are so interesting to actually have time to then talk to us. That has got to be one of the big things.
Yeah, and some of them just come out of the woodwork. There's times where it's been a customer that's just said, "Oh, I've got this person that I sponsor. Would you like to have them on Adventure Habits?" Well, why? What have they done? And like, bloody hell, they did that.
Yeah.
Well, you bet
What
we'll
haven't
have
they
them
done?
on Adventure Habits. There'll be stuff to learn from that guy. Um,
I'm I'm not as clued up as you in terms of remembering names and things. So I've got everyone on Spotify right now to have a little look at the people who we've talked to. So uh, is there any who specifically stand out for you, David, in terms of like any stories that you can think just off the top of your head? I'm putting you on the spot here, but is there
yeah,
anybody
yeah.
you can think of just randomly off the top of your head that you've enjoyed over the last 29 episodes?
Well, it might be slightly to do with my goldfish type memory, but I think it was great to close the season out with Dawn Smith. And she's the world record breaker for the person who's rowed across the Atlantic the most times. She's rowed across the Pacific as well. So just to add that into the thing. But yeah, just an extraordinary person, tremendously positive. There was such a vibe off her for the whole of the session, and she's that case. She's a case in point. A customer who's bought a map from us. His brother runs a charity that deals with PTSD, and that charity put her in contact with us, and so she's just another one of our great adventurers that are supporting people recovering or living with PTSD, which has been a real common thread. I mean, she stands out. She stands out mostly just because of her very positive aspect on stuff. But it was actually one thing that she said, um, which really drives home that adventure. And for me, it put me in that boat. And it is, if you're rowing the Atlantic, it's not like rowing the rivers, however
Yeah.
remote those rivers might be. It's not like running with all of these things. And we've dealt with some great adventurers, the longest ascent of Everest with Mitch Hutchcraft, for example. All of these people have got the options. They've got the team around them. They've got something that means, I've had enough. I'm getting out of here. And
Yeah.
she just, that you don't have that option when you're rowing the Atlantic. That's it. You stop rowing, you're finished.
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's
No, it is.
it's
There's
that
a lot of the,
simple.
so I know a few of the guys who did the Talisker Whiskey Challenge, and I guess when
Oh,
you're
wow. Yeah.
multiple people on a boat rowing, it's hard enough, let alone doing it yourself. It's a pretty amazing feat, and apparently when you get out there after a certain amount of days without seeing civilization, you start hallucinating things out on the water.
Yeah.
Um, but apparently the wildlife and the things that you see you just wouldn't expect, and it's some of those like sunrise mornings out on the ocean when it's still apparently are things you can never ever forget. So I think that really goes into what I like about the Adventure Habits podcast, which is that it captures those moments that you cannot recreate with technology. You cannot recreate with, well, I know it costs money to do things, but you can't just buy that moment. You have to either
No.
train for the moment, you have to go to a moment, you have to plan a moment. It's very human, it's very involved. And I think that's what is so fantastic about the Adventure Habits, is that you hear all these stories of people's moments, and it kind of maybe gives you inspiration to do it yourself, you know?
Yeah, and I'm really pleased that the format works. So these, you get these adventurers. They've got to think of five things that they're going to leave you with, and every one of them's an absolute stormer. There's a lot of repetition. There's a lot of common themes. But you're right. Out of that adversity that they've experienced while doing these extraordinary things, um, there's great advice for life. I kind of think of them almost as their adventure habits, right? That have been born in moments of hardship, in a lot of cases. But they're life hacks. That it's
Yeah.
how do you cope with those things when they happen in your daily life? And I think it was Steve Till, he was Team GB's one of Team GB's runners from the 1980s, and his attitude was very much that everything is an adventure, and so
Yeah.
you can see how these adventure habits, they work in the extremes. They're going to work for you, in how you sort out your daily work routine, for example, or your workout routine, or whatever you're doing.
I still think like even people like Mitch Utterback, he was definitely one of the people who, when we heard his stories, where it was incredibly interesting to hear from a kind of like military perspective. Um,
Yeah, he's
so
struck a
even
chord.
like, well, this is it. Like even adventuring doesn't have to obviously just mean just a vocational way of like traveling. I think that's actually one of the things that I'd say when we look at just segmenting quite nicely here. When we look at people who purchase the Splash Maps product, and we're always looking for feedback. So, if you're listening, give us feedback.
Please
It's
do.
to try and obviously develop and
Sure, it'll be below.
continue. Yeah, there'll be a link somewhere. Um, but just we're always trying to develop and create a better product for a better experience for people. And a lot of any negative comments I usually find are people who actually just don't understand the the scale of adventure that these kind of maps go on in what they're doing, which is absolutely fine. Like if you're a novice to it, it's absolutely fine. But you have got people who are rowing, the Atlantic. We've got people who are military. We've got people who go up mountains for a month at a time. And when all the batteries run out and you've got nothing else, the only thing that's going to keep you directionally sane is a splash map. So um, it is incredible that you've managed to get 29 different people. I know one of them was
Yeah.
technically your co-founder Ian, but and I think one of the episodes I
I
was
mean,
in,
we
in
we
really
were
early.
scraping the barrel, really. weren't we?
I
Having said
hope
that,
he listens back to
he's
that.
living the dream in Manila. So
He is, yeah. He's the core adventure, traveler there. He's one in that book. But it is fantastic to see all the different people doing different things, and um, just the scale. Like I said, the scale and diversity of what they've done is fantastic.
yeah,
So
and it's people who do it as routine, as a job, or
yeah,
there's Paul Taylor from React, and their role in being kind of early responders to huge international disasters and things,
yeah,
the routines that he has. Um, and Steve Late, he's on he's a customer of ours, and he's a Duke of Edinburgh Awards instructor, and I wanted to have him on because that's what a lot of kids could go through, and I think a lot of people who've got a lot of parents who've got kids that have gone through DV can see the difference that it makes, and
yeah,
it's lovely. He talks through that process of getting teenagers to go out somewhere and go and do something extraordinary, and they'll make out that they're hating it, and they do. And I talk to my son, and that was the hardest thing I've ever done. but you know that it's a life experience, that it's improved them, it's enriched them, and he just gets off on that. And for 30 years, he's just been doing Duke of Edinburgh Awards, and then taking his world out there to help more people adventure more often. And again, his philosophy is pretty much everything is adventure, because adventure by its nature means you've embarked on something and you don't know what the outcome's going to be. And isn't that
Yeah.
just what happens every day when we wake up?
Yeah, no, exactly. That's exactly it. So that's a good transition there, David, into what are your 5 adventure habits. We've heard everybody else's. What are
Yeah.
yours? So let's
Well,
start with number one.
well, mine kind of are slightly juxtaposed in a way, and they are based upon what I've learned from these adventures, and I hope I'm taking them into daily life. But so that one that really came through with Jamie Ramsey. So he ran across the Americas. I mean, not just America, but started in Vancouver and ran down to Buenos Aires. Yeah, a lot of pairs of shoes. He his thing is all about routine. You run, and he's pushing a 3-wheeler as he runs. He's running a marathon distance pretty much every day. He has to stop. He has to put a tent up, get the stove going, start eating. During the day, he's had to buy stuff to get things going. You can't carry it all with you, obviously. And so for him, routine, absolutely, it has to be routine. Those routines have to be in place. And for a lot of people, that's the way you do it as well. And it is kind of that mentality. I've arrived. I need to prepare for this evening. I need to be prepared for tomorrow morning. I need to make a quick getaway. I can't waste time doing this stuff. And it's cutting that procrastination out of life. I think that's a real take-home message from the adventurers that I've got. So the routine can apply to doing cold calls or warm calls to people, or it could be
I think
whatever your daily
I think
job
the
is.
routine one is a fantastic first adventure habit, purely because it's so. I don't know. Every single person will benefit from a routine of some form. I'm not talking like the super extremes of get up at 5 a.m. and the ice bath guys. Then you've got the people who like get in the gym and do an hour workout before you do anything else. And I'm not necessarily talking about that, but even
That's
if you
you, isn't
just
it, Nick?
no, absolutely not. I'm not an ice bath guy. I go to the gym, 100% go to the gym, but not. No, I'm not the ice bath guy. And I don't go in the morning. And there's no way. I did it before getting up at 6 a.m. It's not for me. I definitely train better later in the evening / night. Probably because of my touring years. That's probably why. Because I'm just used to being active at that time. But I just think everybody can benefit from it, especially all the way down to like what time you go to bed, making sure you go to bed at the same time every night, make sure you wake up at the same time every
Yeah.
morning, make sure you either are a breakfast person or you're not a breakfast person. I'm a black coffee person. That's me. But just any form of routine will always help you. I think that's fantastic. And the
Yeah.
procrastination one, you're
But
not
then
wrong. It keeps it away.
yeah, my I'm going to have to disagree with you though, Nick, because my my habit number 2 is to break routine. So it has to be.
Be dynamic. Well, this is it. Like I think you're being as hypocritical as the Stoics. So, in one hand, you're saying routine's going to incredibly help your life, but in the other hand, you're like, but don't stick to routine too much, like because that's not human, and you got to
Yeah.
be dynamic to things that come your way. So, how come? Why is your second one break routine?
Well, it's because it's too easy to fall into the routine. Once you've got the routine set up, it will lead you so far. But you can
Yeah,
only stay on a level if everything becomes a routine. And let's face it, the enjoyment of life isn't there. Where's the adventure in routine? Surely adventure is about breaking that routine, about not knowing. Routine is all about um, doing your best to take the bumps out of life.
yeah,
Um, and then adventure is all about putting those bumps back in again.
yeah,
So
yeah,
maybe the routines that you get mean that you can jolly along better with the extra bumps that you're putting in your life. And the deliberate bumps are, or why not? go and plan to climb Kilimanjaro, or why not go and row the Atlantic? Why not go and cycle across Africa or something like that? You know, they're the things that they're the things that make life interesting, and you know you
But
can
you
do that in
need
a
routine one though. You need your adventure habit one to be able to do that.
yes, yeah. I think what we've got here is a Russian doll of habits that's emerged out of this very scientific study we've done, Nick.
What would your third Russian doll be in your five habits and your five Russian dolls?
Well, it's actually it does come from the latest one. Like I say, I've got a memory like a goldfish, but with Dawn Smith, it was about having a why, and she was very strong that you know people come to her. So she's a big rowing coach. You could imagine that she would be. And she has people that come to her from far and wide before they go and have a go at rowing across the Atlantic. And she always asks them, why are you doing this? And a lot of them will say, well, I'm raising money for guide dogs for the blind, or I'm doing this, that, or the other. And she'll absolutely drill into know why are you doing it? And this is something that's come up from all the other adventurers as well. It's your why has to be deeper than that. You're not raising money for for guide dogs for the blind. There's something that's led you to want to row the Atlantic, which when you think about it is a pretty impossible thing to do. And it brings in all kinds of dangers and uncertainties. And it's not, you know, for many of us, it's not something we'd want in our lives for
Yeah,
that amount of time.
I also think the knowing your why is super important, and I know exactly why she'll be asking people that. It's because if you're about to go on a perilous journey where it's quite literally life threatening, when it gets to the part where your body's kind of giving in on you and you're mentally tired, and if you're mentally tired, you make bad choices. When you know your why, you won't give up, and I
Yeah.
think that's something that people don't live with at the front of their mind every day. And you can relate this. I can relate this now to business. I could relate it when I was touring in a band and it got hard to the chip on my shoulder. Like you can relate everything you're doing to a why. And I think it's why people fall off with habits that are meant to be good for them, but it's because they don't associate the why with something that's actually truly deep and internal. And
Mm.
I think that's why you've got like a just from what I see in my perspective of business adventures is you got a lot of young business entrepreneurs up and coming, which I think is fantastic, but they're not grinding out those early years that really shape you as a person and develop you into being somebody who is successful because
Mm.
they're so financially driven that they only care about making money, which you don't make, as you well know, in when you start your own business for years. Like it is really running a business. I've
We're
always
getting
said,
there, Nick.
but this is it. Like we are like, and we're doing well. And we're spreading the word. But just running a business is just taking just punches in the face every day, and then out of nowhere you might get a right hook, and one day you might dodge the punch, and you go, "That was a really good win." And then as you've gone, that's a really good win. Something else just punches you in the face again. And I don't think if you know your why, you can deal with it and you can keep going. And it is fantastic. It's a beautiful journey. It's a great highs and lows. It teaches you everything you need to know about yourself. It really exposes you in that way. You have to know your why to keep
Yeah.
going. And I think like a lot of people, when they go into anything, not just business, if they know their why really deep down, they really know themselves, they know what they're doing something for, they will see it out in the hardest of times.
Yeah. Which is why it's really difficult that my fourth habit is to
Oh, here we go.
don't have a why.
So
Well,
just
I mean, I'm trying to make a juxtaposition here, of course,
yeah, I
but
can see that. It's okay.
don't have a why because you know you've just said it for your business, and you've said the example of all the young entrepreneurs that you see as well. That it is true that the first motivation is right. Well, this time next year, Rodney, we're going to be millionaires, and
Yeah,
and so
that's it.
isn't that a motivation? You know, why am I doing this to become a millionaire? Well, no, it's not. But my sense is, and I'm holding on to this one, Nick.
Okay, okay.
my, my sense is that the why is something that unfolds with time, and I can see that with I'll go back to Jamie Ramsey's one. So Jamie had he was raising money by running across the Americas for charities for men's mental health and suicide charities. There's the extraordinary levels of young males committing suicide. So he was doing that, but it wasn't something that he had personal experience of, and it wasn't something that he had, a direct connection with. No, for him, it was much more something he picked up along the way. He was learning about himself as he went along that journey. And when you read his book, you can see this realization dawning on him as he goes from country to country, interaction to interaction, weird experience to weird experience, is he basically got comfortable with himself. And a lot of the adventurers that we deal with, and another one, Mitch Hutchcraft, they're all there's a lot of neurodiversity amongst adventurers, as well as we've talked about PTSD already, as well as things that have happened from the external world and impacted their mental health. There's people that are born with these conditions, and Jamie is not comfortable in people's company and social situations, etc. He loved being on his own, and he's now learned to embrace that through that travel, and he continues that in life. He's doing the most extraordinary adventures. With Mitch Hutchcraft, from an early stage, he was fairly well aware of his condition and treats it as a superpower. And how else would you do the longest ascent of Everest, if he didn't have a superpower? So these people are kind of, I'd say, with those guys, and to an extent, the most of us in life won't know why we're here in the first instance. So you develop that why, but the trick is to look out for the signs as you go along. And with Jamie in his run, that caused it.
Is that developing a why? I'm going to bring this back to you. Is that developing a why, or is that changing your why, which is completely acceptable? Because, so I'll give you an example, right? So he obviously started to, well, I'll use his one. He started on his run because his why was in that moment to do this for, suicide and so on and so forth. Like, I'm raising awareness and I'm raising charity and all this sort of stuff. That is my core why. It's really deep to me. I want to do this. But as he's doing it and he's changing as a person, because something that physical is going to change you, you get to the end and your why might still be that, but you might have a different North Star because you're almost getting through the completion level. So as you're completing it, your brain, and as a person people who do that always strive for greatness. So they're always trying to progress in life. So the why has to shift. So I was that 16-year-old who wanted to drum on stage in front of thousands of people. That was all I wanted to do. I was convinced that my entire life was going to be predicated around drumming in front of thousands of people, right? That was it. It's a very superficial thing if I really think about it. It's very selfish. But as I was doing it more, the music that we were creating, and I was getting stories of people coming to me and saying, your music helped me through X, Y, and Z dark time. Or I'd post a lot of motivational stuff on my socials a couple of years ago, and I'd have kids message me and say, look, I've had a horrendous day. This actually really helped me. And then my why became helping people. And I built 6 Point as a result of going, well, actually, I think I can help more creatives by creating a different atmosphere for work. So my why was always, I want to drum in front of thousands of people and to prove people wrong, because I had a little man syndrome at the time. And now it's shifted. So, but I think that's what it is. It's not necessarily that we don't have a why, or not necessarily lean into not having a why, but I think it'd be okay with change as you grow.
Well, you see, I think that brings us into the fifth habit that I've got here, because I would say, well, yeah, okay, so I can lean into that a bit with the changing in why, and I think the change in why does happen. I'm at a transitional stage. My kids have suddenly grown up. All of a sudden, it's quite a surprise to me, and suddenly you're in this new phase of life, and your why changes again.
Yeah.
But I think you've got to. So my fifth one is, and it's common to absolutely all of the adventurers that we've spoken to. So all 29, I'm pretty sure, including Ian and yourself.
Nice.
It's about being in the moment. You know, you
Yeah.
get one crack at this, and every moment is special. Every breath is a privilege, and you just have to love the process and run with it. So just enjoy the process, and enjoy. Actually, make a note that you're enjoying the process, and that's about celebrating the little wins as well as the big wins, even if it's something that comes in every year, routine. This time of year, this happens. Um, thanks to you guys at 6 Point, we went viral on the weekend. I'm celebrating. That is a big thing. That's a great thing. And the responses coming back are broadly positive. I did get accused this morning of looking like Kevin Spacey, though. Don't really know how I'm going to take that one, but that's you
I
get
mean,
goods and you get bads.
yeah, I was going to say it swings and roundabouts for sure. But no, 100%. I think the take the moment in and like be present is so huge because life is so intense that you naturally kind of just go into either your fight or flight mode sometimes, or you're just running the motions. You are in your routine, you're out of your routine. You know what your why is, so you're driving for it, or sometimes you're in the middle of change, so it's sticky. So all of these come together to that one moment, which is just be present. And
Yeah.
I remember like my one story just to round that off is I remember when I was touring, we were playing at the time to thousands of people in Europe, and there was a stretch of shows where we were playing 1,000 cap venues, and they were almost all of them were sold out, and we were headlining as well. So, but
Brilliant.
every night I wasn't worried about, or I wasn't thinking about like, oh, I've got the emojis up on my screen. I wasn't thinking about like what the crowd or like the whole superficial thing of being on stage. I was worried about playing perfectly so that people in the crowd didn't think, oh, he's bad, but they also enjoyed the show to the maximum capability. So I was so performance led in what I was doing, which meant that I was like, I'd get off stage and I couldn't tell you what happened during the set because when I think you're so drilled in and focused, and I think these adventurers going and doing these massive adventures, if you're so drilled in and focused on what you're doing, you forget. Like there's a lot of shows that I don't remember that happened. The ones that I do remember happened is because halfway through the set, I learned there was like a 1 minute interval where like music was playing, and every show on that run, this is why I remember that run so well. I would take my in ear out, let it dangle, and I'd just sit back. I'd put my sticks on the kit. I'd look back and I'd look out to the crowd, and they'd all be singing in that part to the rest of the band. So I just sat and just looked around, and I think that's how I look. I'm present in the moment. Is I look and I like look at the shapes of things around me, and I really take it in
That's taking
and
the
just
win. Yeah.
build the memory. Um, and they're
Mm.
some of the best shows I can remember because I
Yeah.
literally took my headphone out, listened, smelt the air, like just looked at all the different shapes, and I was like, wow, that was incredible. Put my in ear back in, and that's it. You're straight back into it. So,
Isn't it
yeah,
Keith Richards that says he couldn't remember any of the 1970s, but that might have been for a slightly different
yeah,
reason.
that's. I was gonna say different reason for that one. I wasn't that guy. I was clean bean the whole way through. Like I didn't. Yeah, I wasn't one of those. Now, I've met plenty of bands who were, and I. Do you know what? I have almost more respect for how they played so well whilst so so influenced. I'm a bit like I don't know how you do that. That's yeah. I've never been down that route. So, but yeah, I think his was different, slightly different.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, there's so many routines that have come out to help you with that from the
Yeah,
last series. I remember Liz Dernstein's the lady that ran the Appalachian Trail, the fastest that any human being's ever done it. And her routine was, it was to take in the surrounds, but it's also to engage with the environment. And for her, it's to be in a wide open space and yell something visceral. You just whatever's
I
come up
remember that one.
soul.
Yeah,
And that kind of reminds me, because that's what happens in the crowd, isn't it? The crowd of people
yeah,
watching you play is they're then yelling back whatever has
yeah.
been, whatever's come at them.
That's it.
Beautiful.
100%.
So there you
Look, I
got it.
think
You condense. You don't have to see any of the other adventurers at all. But yeah, please
no.
do.
If anything, I was gonna say that's giving people like a bookmark of like ones to start with, and then go and watch the rest of them. But it's been a fantastic season one, David. You've killed it.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for putting it all together for me. And
No problem.
it's been a great pleasure, and we're looking forward in the future. We've got Nick Goldsmith lined up, so there's going to be more bushcrafting, more PTSD, more stories from the Royal Marines. That just as a headline, there's a lot of Royal Marines and ex-service people in the back catalogue now, as well as people like you, dear listener. Anyone can go out and have an adventure. Go outside the door now and go and claim yours.
Sounds good.
Okay. Do you reckon that's a good place to?
I think we're good. I think the listeners have heard enough of my voice, and yeah, we'll see them in season 2.
Okay, on to season 2. Subscribe below.